I'm laughing because although I love this musical intro, that wasn't the one I wanted to hit. I wanted to hit the other one, but nonetheless, I hit that one. Good morning. It is Tuesday morning, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, February the 18th, 2020. This is episode 19 of McRae Live, and I don't have a lot of time today. I'm probably gonna have to cut the show short today. I'm probably gonna have to bow out at around 12:15 or so because I have an appointment that I have to go to. So a doctor's appointment. So I gotta. I'm all right. Don't worry. I'm okay, much to the chagrin, I'm sure, of some of you. Fuck, he's all right. Damn it. But yes, I was going to push the show, but I thought, no, you know what? Let's do the show anyway. So, but I may have to bow out. Yeah, well, I am going to have to bow out probably about maybe 15 minutes before I normally would. So my apologies for that, but I wanted to jump on here and do the show anyway. So I will mention that again throughout the course of the show for those of you that are tuning in later. Throughout the program. So, so in this episode, I had a couple of ideas of what I was going to talk about today, and I came across this really cool article, and the article is on the website. It's a website I've actually never heard of, to be honest with you. Maybe you guys have heard of it, but I have never heard of it. I just almost thought I exited out of there. That would have sucked. All right, and let's see here. The site is Ars Technica. I don't know. ArsTechnica.com. I've never heard of them before, but nonetheless, this is really cool. The headline is Fight or Flight: How Horror Movies Manipulate Our Brains for Peak Excitement. Now, as you can imagine, I was like, okay, I've got to check this out. I was just like, this is really interesting. So, let me move over to my other camera there. There we are. Hey, hi, hey there, ho there, hi there, hidey ho there. Okay, and I found this really interesting. Of course, the thumbnail they use on that. Let me just, you know what? I'm going to take the link and I'm going to put it in the chat if you guys want to check that out. There's the link there if you guys want to check that out. Feel free to click on that and read it at your own leisure. If you have no interest in listening to me read it, you're like, fuck, Dave, stop doing that. But nonetheless, the thumbnail they used for their article, of course, is from the very first Insidious movie, and hence why I use it for the thumbnail for this show. And Insidious is one of my favorite. Certainly one of my favorite horror movies of the last 20 years. The first one. The second one was interesting. James Wan was still a director on it, and I didn't fully agree with sort of the creative choice to go backwards. I wasn't really, but certainly it was certainly watchable. But that first one is something special. That first one is really, really cool, and so I'm glad they used the thumbnail from that. Well, and it makes sense once you read the article. But anyway, I just wanted to read some of this for you, excuse me, and then give you my thought, because you guys know me how important, well, let me read this and then I'll give you my thoughts. Okay. So the article is by, let me see here, is by Jennifer Ouellette. Ouellette, am I saying? Probably butchering that. Anyway, this is from yesterday. And it says, when we watch horror movies, our brains are hard at work with lots of interconnected crosstalk between different regions to anticipate perceived threats and prepare to respond accordingly. This enhances our excitement while watching, according to scientists at the University of Turku in Finland. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Turku in Finland. Researchers used an MRI to map the neural activity of subjects while the subjects watched horror movies. Their findings are described in a recent paper published in the journal Neural Medj. Am I saying that? Probably butchering that. It's a take, obviously, on the word, obviously meaning associated with the brain. Neural Medj. Maybe it's an actual word. I'm not sure. Anyway, nonetheless, cool stuff. According to the co-author Matthew Hudson, now at the National College of Ireland in Dublin, the objective was to take a closer look at dynamic interactions in the brain during an intense emotional experience. Most prior studies on neuromechanisms have adopted a binary approach in that the focus is on comparing two conditions, but this ignores the temporal dynamics between the two conditions, the continuous fear response. Hudson told ours, which is the site here. It's strange. I've never heard of this site before. We wanted to use a neuralistic stimuli and new ways to analyze neural data to try and understand exactly how the fear response changes over time, rather than simply comparing brain activity before and after a perceived threat. Horror movies provided the perfect fear-inducing stimulus. I would agree. Also, you could probably take everybody up to the edge walk of the CN Tower, and that would do it as well. But nonetheless, horror movies is what we're talking about. To select which movies to use in the study, the Finnish team set up an online survey of 100 popular horror movies selected by their IMDb ratings. Oh boy. But nonetheless, I think they chose two good ones. And 216 filmaholics. I guess we're all filmaholics here, right? Filmaholics evaluated the films based on how scary they were, their quality, and their popularity, as well as gathering data on how often people watched horror movies and what kinds of horror they found the scariest. Psychological horror, based on real events, was rated scariest. Now, again, this is just one study, folks. This is not the gospel here, okay? But I don't find them scary at all. Well, that's great. That's great. So psychological horror movies on real events was rated the scariest, along with unseen, unseen or implied threats. Yes, there is hope. There is hope. I had a nerdgasm when I read that because it's so important. The researchers also tallied the number of jump scares in each movie, courtesy of the Where's the Jump database. Wow, I did not know there was a Where's the Jump database. Did you guys know this? That there was a Where's the Jump database? I didn't know that. Ultimately, the team selected the 2010 film Insidious. It's a good movie to select. And The Conjuring 2. That's too bad. I think they should have chose the first Conjuring from 2016 for the study. Per Hudson, both films had the same director, James Wan, and boasted a fairly high number of jump scares, 24 and 22 respectively. Plus, not many people who took the plus not many people who took the survey had seen those films. Okay, well, that's good. That's always good. That ensured that test subjects would be experiencing the films for the first time while in the scanner, compared to more famous films like Jaws or The Shining. Participants rated their fear levels throughout both movies. Fascinating. This is really cool. I love shit like this. The study focused on two types of fear: that creeping sense of foreboding in a spooky setting, interesting, with a growing sense that something is not quite right, ooh, it's my kind of cup of tea, and the instinctive jolting response we have to an unsuspected sudden appearance of a monster or other threat, a jump scare. The team found that during the former scenario, so the foreboding, suspense, slow burn kind of thing, there are marked increases in brain activity in terms of visual and auditory perception. In the sudden shock scenarios, there was heightened brain activity in regions involved in processing emotion, evaluating threats, and making decisions the better to respond rapidly to any perceived threats. Fascinating. Quote. This is coming, I guess, from one of the researchers, I think. It's that Hudson guy. I was surprised by the relative dominance of visual and auditory areas during the anxiety portions of the movie, said Hudson, since these were relatively quiet segments of the film, with a largely dark screen and little information. he surmised that this indicates the brain was trying to reduce the uncertainty involved by trying to gather as much available evidence as possible. The researchers also found a large degree of functional connectivity between different regions of the brain. Are you following me, people? Unbelievable shit. My biggest surprise was just how global the fear response is. Well, that shouldn't be. Really? That was your biggest surprise? I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but I get the principle of what he's saying. There's constant information transfer between all of these systems. It makes sense that the whole brain is responsive to a potential threat, of course, at the expense of anything else. Man, this is great shit. One person who definitely welcomes this neuroimaging study is Matthias Klassen. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Matthias Klassen of Aarhus University in Denmark, author of Why Horror Seduces, who specializes in studying our response to horror in books, film, video games, and other forms of entertainment. Folks, I might want to get that book. I have yet to read a book cover to cover. It's true. I can read, obviously. I read for a living, but I have yet to read a book from cover to cover. It's crazy. I tend to dabble. Like if I find a book that I'm interested in, I'll begin reading from the beginning. I mean, that's always a good spot to start, right? I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I know, but a good spot to start is the beginning. And then I find myself by 40 pages in, my mind begins to wander, and I don't know. It's just so strange. It's weird. But Why Horror Seduces. He specializes in studying the response to horror in books, film, video games, and other forms of entertainment. Fascinating. Check that out, folks. Klassen examined the dominant personality traits of horror fans, and last year we reported on his investigation of 2 different fear regulation strategies employed by subjects participating in a Danish haunted house. Adrenaline junkies. Have you heard of this term, folks? Adrenaline junkies who lean into the fear, and white knucklers who try to tamp down their fear. Fascinating. I've heard of adrenaline junkies, but I have not heard of white knucklers. This is news to me. I've heard of adrenaline junkies. Those are those people who what are you doing? You know what I mean? You see those things all the time. But there's also white knucklers. Fascinating. Granted, the Finnish study wasn't focused specifically on horror. It was just using horror movies to study overlapping fear systems in the brain. But the findings dovetail with Klassen's own conclusions. Quote, I love how they find that one brain network prompts vigilance, activation of the sensories, and sanitizes another network for action, the one that prompts fight or flight. Where am I? Am I right? Am I in the right spot? My thing jumped here. Hopefully I said that right. I think I did. Yes. Klassen told ours. Uh-oh, I jumped. Where am I? There we are. Okay. It's just damned cool that somebody is finally using MRI to look at horror, said Klassen. Their findings confirm my core hypothesis. That horror exploits the evolved fear system. That horror exploits the evolved fear system? Maybe that's supposed to be the other way around. Anyway, finally, some solid empirical evidence. The classic horror movie buildup makes us hyper-vigilant, all but trembling in anxious anticipation, and leads up to the jump scare, which produces a reactionary startle response. Again, if you want to read the rest of this, I will provide the link again in the chat room here. There you go. There is the link. Check it out. I could keep going. But naturally, of course, it's a bit of a long article. If you want to read the rest, by all means, check it out at the link that I just provided there in the chat room. And let me just say that this is really interesting and really fascinating. A lot of what I read here is not surprising. There's a lot of technical, scientific, mumbo jumbo that you're kind of like, okay, let me read that again. Okay, yes, I see what they're saying. But it's fascinating because As you guys know me, I am a huge proponent of the theater of the mind type of horror. I know I can't stress how important that is. And you've heard me say on this channel many times that the reason, and it's my own sort of layman's terms, the reason why it's so important is because when you create a narrative or write a story that allows breathing room for that theater of the mind to take place, you put everybody in the same position, because fear is a universal sort of emotion and experience, right? Comedy is different. We have different types of comedy. What I might find funny, you may not. What you might find funny, I may not. But, you know, we both probably have a fear of having our head chopped off. I mean, that's just, it's a universal animalistic, you know, it goes back. I mean, it's part of who we are. It's part of our makeup to have that fight or flight response. Fear is definitely that primal animalistic, you know, part of our DNA, and we experience fear relatively the exact same way. So when you create a narrative where there is that impending doom and that anticipation, and you allow your audience to fill in the blanks themselves as you're moving insidiously, no pun intended to James Wan's Insidious, but that's what it means. Insidiously essentially means, you know, slow moving, you know, it makes its way into an environment, you know, inconspicuously, insidiously, and before you know it, it's like taking everything over. That's what insidious means. That insidious nature that a lot of these great classic theater of the mind slow burn movies have, you allow your audience to fill in the blanks. And the great thing is that everybody is experiencing the same thing. Everybody is thinking the same thing. If you and I were in the movie theater and we're watching a movie, you might go to a different, you've heard me say this, you might go to a different dark place than I might go to, right? I might be thinking the monster is tall, green, with slime all over his face. And you might be thinking the monster is red, short, with scales all over his body, because you naturally go to your deepest, darkest fears. So we're actually thinking two different things, but we're both experiencing the same level of fear because we're going to our own versions of our deepest, darkest fears, because they haven't shown us anything. They haven't shown us this is what it looks like. This is what you should fear. This is what's going on. And again, I'm not saying that every horror movie has to be like that. I mean, obviously, you know, there are, you know, nuance, right? I mean, you know, it depends if the story calls for that. And sometimes watching a blood, guts, and gore in your face horror movie is great. But the scariest things, and this study tends to sort of, you know, favor this outcome, is that the scariest things that people can fear in terms of the brain activity and that emotional response is that impending unknown doom, you know, because it's the brain, it's getting the brain working and thinking all sorts of things. And of course, this is happening in like nanoseconds. It's not like you're necessarily consciously aware of it. You feel it within you, but it's not like you know, are there looking at your brain, seeing the compartmentalization of all the emotions and, you know, what's happening. It's very, 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 very fast. But it is that we're all experiencing it together. Whereas if you show the person what's going on too quickly, too soon, half your audience will be like, oh my God, that's exactly what I thought. And then the other half of the audience will be like, lame, because now you've let the cat out of the bag. So now you're getting different responses from your audience. And eventually that's going to happen. I mean, you can't please everybody, but that's what I love about that theater of the mind, slow burn, is that if you can nurture that, you know, type of horror and storytelling, and it can be very effective, and you can have most of your audience, you know, on the ride the entire time. And then, of course, whatever your climactic moment is, you have to hope that you deliver on that, right? You have to hope that you deliver on that. And sometimes you will, and sometimes you won't. But I think it's so fascinating to read an article like this. It's so cool that they're actually doing studies like this. I mean, it's not the first time they've ever done anything like this, but it's cool to see that kind of thing. Before I continue, for those of you that are just joining us, or maybe you joined us just a few moments ago, I will have to bow out here in probably about another, probably about 12:15 Eastern Standard Time. I have an appointment I have to go to, a doctor's appointment. So I definitely, it's okay. I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm good. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. But I got to go to that, obviously. And it's it's on the other side of the city. So I have to make sure I get over there in time. So I'll be bowing out a little early today, but I had to jump on and talk to you guys because I just find this so interesting. But that's my favorite kind of horror, and it looks like the study in this article sort of is leaning towards that, right? Now, again, this is just it's one study. It's a small sample size, relatively speaking, although they did have 216 people partake. So that's pretty good. But what I loved about this is, where is it here? I went nuts for it earlier. Where are we here? Because it's so cool, because it's a small sample size, but it's showing you that, people, it's that theater of the mind really is strong. Again, it says here that psychological horror-based films on real events was rated scariest. That's interesting. But you could probably put psychological horror movies in there anyway, even films that were not based on real events. You could probably could include that in there. Along with unseen or implied threats. That's your theater of the mind. That's the unknown factor. That's the shadows. That's lurking in the shadows. That's that slow burn, impending, ominous doom, right? And then what do they say further down in the article? They say that ominous, slow suspense sort of, and they're looking at the brains. They're not getting people's opinions. They're not getting their verbal opinions. They're watching the brain activity. This is what's so cool. We can measure this. This isn't subjective. This is objective, based on scientific response, based on how the brain is responding to certain stimuli with what the person is seeing. And that is really cool. That's really cool. I love that. And this is a really cool article. I have never heard of this site before. I don't think it's a movie site. I mean, it's Ars Technica. It's got to be. I think because this was was based in science. That's probably why they did it. But read the rest of that article. It's really, really cool. Very cool indeed. And again, I mean, you guys know me. My favorite, and it's not that I don't love the popcorn, blood, guts, and gore every now and then. I'm not a blood, guts, and gore guy, but every now and then I can sit and watch a movie that's just popcorn fart fun. You know what I'm saying? It's just fun. There's nothing, whatever, right? But the best horror movies are your psychological thrillers and that get into the deep fabric of your psyche and start to get your mind to wander, because then it's almost as if you start to scare yourself. You know what I mean? Because you start thinking about things and what the, oh my God, what's going on? And that's it. I mean, that's really where it's at. That's why that's why Psycho was such a great movie for its time. Yes, it was a slasher, and yes, there was that shower scene, but I mean, everything else leading up to that, and Rear Window. My God, have you guys seen, Hitchcock's Rear Window? I mean, brilliant stuff. I mean, again, imagine watching it in 1954. I think it was 54, right? Imagine watching it for its time. Halloween, the same thing, way back in the day, And I'm not saying that, every movie's got to be like that, but there's something very special when you know how to manipulate almost a person's psyche by the power of suggestion through theater of the mind and being able to actually write a narrative and a story that taps into that. And that's really fucking cool. And this research, this study, shows that type of horror, that type of shock is there. There definitely is a response to the shock, right? To the, the blood, guts, and gore, or, the jump scares or whatever. But the studies actually showed through brain activity that it's the other stuff that actually has more of an impact. And that's really cool shit. Really cool shit. No surprise to me, really. But very cool stuff, to say the least. So check that article out. Again, I put it in the chat room. Scroll back in case you're just joining us. Ars Technica. It is ARS. Let's see here. ARS Technica, technica.com, arstechnica.com, and you'll see it there. The headline is Fight or Flight, How Horror Movies Manipulate Our Brains for Peak Excitement. The whole brain is responsive to a potential threat at the expense of anything else. That's the quote at the top. The whole brain is responsive to a potential threat at the expense of anything else. Just really, really, really cool stuff. Yeah, I wish there were more articles like this, to be honest with you. But nonetheless, it's there, folks, if you want to check it out. Okay, yeah, let's jump to the chat room now and take some of your questions. Again, I'll probably bow out around 12:15 because of my appointment. But let's see what we got going on in the chat room. Super chat from Big G says, a horror will affect your brain and pants. Yes, sometimes horror movies can definitely affect your pants and cause you to take a shit. It's a very astute observation there, Big G. Fascinating. Amazing. Let me see here. Frank Riker says, are you pregnant, Dave? Am I pregnant? No, why? Did I say something that made you think I was pregnant? I don't know. Frank Riker says, my kids scare me. I don't want, what does he says? I don't want them hurt, and they are my weakness. Yeah, well, of course. I mean, if you have children, who wants their kids hurt, right? Jesus, I mean, that's just unbelievable. Frank Riker sends in a super chat. Thank you very much, Frank, for the support. Says, Dave, Jamie Lee Curtis slept over until... Here goes Frank. I love this. Frank, the fact that you're spending super chats to say this is amazing. Dave, Jamie Lee Curtis slept over and told me the ending of Ends. Michael is visited by three ghosts, Bob, Linda, and Annie, who show him the error of his ways and turns over a new leaf. He's accepted by Laurie, becomes a second father to Allison. Brilliant. Frank, that is brilliant. That's exactly what I think should happen. Amazing. You hit the nail right on the head, man. That's exactly what's going to happen. Edwin A. Sordo says, what's good, Dave? I'm a 14-year-old. A 14. Well, it's good. It's good. I remember when I was 14 and 19. I'm a 14-year-old who loves horror movies from the 70s, 80s, and even today. But I watch a lot of them. What are your thoughts, Mr. McRae? But I watch a lot of them. What are my thoughts on you watching a lot of? I think that's great. You know, yeah, I think that's great. What are my thoughts on the 70s and 80s horror even? Well, most of my favorite horror movies are older films. It takes a very special kind of horror movie today to really get me to, I mean, the first Conjuring was great. The first Insidious was great. Hereditary was great. You know, but in the big picture, going back over the last 10, 15 years, it's hard for me to find a horror movie that I'm like, now that was I really enjoyed that. But I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you. I like all well, not all of them, but there are definitely a lot of 70s and 80s horror that I like, yeah, for a variety of reasons. Andrew L. says, is there anything in movies that instantly gives you the creep, such as spiders or heights, etc.? And what's a movie that used your fears, that used my fears? Oh, I see. There's not a lot that I'm afraid of. And I say that not in a, I don't, you know, I just mean that, I mean, certainly spiders don't scare me. I think it's I mean, very few people like having creepy crawlers crawl on them, right? But I think it's the unsuspected nature of it for me. Like if I'm sitting there, you know, watching TV or something, and all of a sudden I see, you know, a spider crawling on my leg, it's kind of like, you know, because you didn't expect it, right? It's like, oh my God, you know, but if a spider was in the corner on the floor, I can go up to it and, you know, actually kill it or pick it up, you know, put it outside, you know, or something like that, because I'm mentally prepared for it. Now, for those of you that live in Australia, I don't know how the hell you do it. I mean, you could be watching TV and all of a sudden, you know, you look in the corner of your room and you see a spider this big. It's like, like, fuck, I just don't get it. I don't know how you guys do it. I mean, fucking ants in your backyard can kill you. Like, it's amazing. I'm surprised the population of Australia isn't completely dead. Heights, here's the thing. I love this quote. Heights, I'm not afraid of heights. I'm afraid of dying. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the height that scares me. It's the falling off part that scares me. So, yeah, heights. I think there's some, I will say, watching those guys and gals do what the hell is it called? Where they like leap off of like from one building to the next and shit like that. listen, I mean, it is amazing what you're able to do, but why on earth you would do it, putting your own life in your, because it's not like you're just like a few, 2 or 3 stories off the ground. There's sometimes 60, 70, 80 parkour. Thank you, JJ. You're JJ Abrams. No, you're sometimes like 60, 70 stories. And people have died. I mean, people have died. They've slipped, fallen. And yes, I understand that it's that they are very good at it. It's not that they're not very good at it. But for me, the risk just doesn't outweigh the reward. Now, for them, they're wired differently. There's a different wiring going on. They are the adrenaline junkies. But I would never do it. And sometimes I see them doing it in sock feet. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And of course there was that, and people have died. And I just... watching that, not so much, well, kind of still today. I remember the first time I saw those YouTube videos, I got weak in my knees, literally got weak in my knees. And it was crazy. It was crazy. Tabitha says the thrill of the risk. Oh, absolutely. That's what it is. I just think I don't see, like, they're not even getting, well, that's not true. I mean, sometimes it's becoming more of a business now, I guess, but early on, it's not like they were getting paid, and they're not, and most of them are still not getting paid. They're not making millions of dollars off of it. It's not like I mean, I just would never do it. I just think it's not worth it. That's not worth it. And a lot of these people are, and because anyway, we could do a whole show on that, but that, the first time I saw that definitely made my knees a little weak. Duke Fleed says, Dave, what's the movie that scared you the most? I don't know. Scare I'm not sure. I remember the first time I saw The Ring back in 2002. I thought that was a very creepy movie, but not is it Samara? I think that's her name. Not when she comes out of the TV. That's creepy. Yeah, it is. I mean, but that's stuff that's Hollywood, right? Like that's stuff we're sort of used to seeing, is that kind of sensationalism. The part of The Ring that got me, and admittedly, I saw The Ring before I saw the Japanese original Ringu from 1998. The part that got me in The Ring when I first saw it was just the psychological aspect of it, in terms of finding, not the 7 days. I mean, that's like, all that stuff's great. It's creepy, cool. But it's just what you see on the videotape, how random it appears, how strange it is, but yet how calculated it is, how specific. And we're back. That was funny. I paused like this. I don't know if it paused like that for you, but I was like, we're back though. The point I'm making is it was all the stuff revolving around the VHS tape, where it was so strange and eerie and creepy to watch. I mean, imagine, I guess what it is that I put myself in the position of Naomi Watts. Imagine finding this tape, putting it in, and watching it in this creepy sort of, like, it's this, I guess it's the psychological aspect of that. Imagine that, like, what the fuck is this? What is this? What the fuck is this? It's just so creepy and mysterious and eerie. It's the same way I sort of felt about the Vacancy movie from 2007. I think Luke Wilson was in that. And when that's a really great movie. But imagine going into a hotel room, finding a tape, putting in the tape, and you see people being tortured to death, but you realize that the room they're tortured to death is the room you're currently staying in, that you're in right now watching this tape. Fucking just creepy shit. Shit like that. It's always going to be the psychological aspect of things that really creep me out. I love mood and I love atmosphere, and certainly, a slow burn and tension and mood. And I love that feeling too. That's the other thing that'll really sort of creep me out. And when you combine that with what I was talking about, I mean, it's just a home run for me, right? Blood, guts, and gore is, it might be, fun, but it's not scary to me. Like, there's nothing scary about blood, guts, and gore. It's more of the getting in here, that fucks people up. So I can't think of a specific movie off the top of my head, but those are examples of things that I look for, or if a movie does have those types of things, I'm usually sitting there going, "Oh, God, this is kind of creepy." You know what I mean? Frank Riker sends a super chat and says, "Dave, what's worse, the horror of monsters or what horror man is capable of, or what horrors man is capable of?" The horrors of, well, I think both in their respective arenas, but I think, yes, I think what the horrors man is capable of, hence back to the article, right? The psychological, the study that basically said psychological horror based on real events seemed to have the most impact in terms of measuring the brain activity. And I think that is probably true. I think when you are able to allow the audience to get a sense of realism, a sense of grounded reality, a sense of a world that they live in, that it could be their next door neighbor, it could happen to them. Again, audiences aren't generally thinking of this consciously as they're watching the movie, but it's seeping into their subconscious. It's happening within them even when they realize it, or even when they don't realize it. I think watching psychological thrillers and horrors that are always that usually always have a very strong sense of verisimilitude or grounded in reality will always have a much larger effect than the big bad monster that comes out of the closet, because that's why some of the best moments of movies like that, like one of my favorite moments of The Conjuring, and you guys know this, is when the two sisters are in bed and that one is up because she thinks she sees something in the corner of her room, and she's sitting in her bed and she's going, "There's something there. There's something." And the camera's showing the dark corner of the room and there's nothing there. And the sister's like, "What is it? There's nothing there. What is it? There's nothing there." And she's looking at this and the camera sort of, dollying in on her, and she's looking, and and then the camera shows the corner and there's nothing there, right? That shit is fantastic, because 9 times out of 10, it's not like we're waking up in the middle of the night seeing demons, right? I mean, that doesn't happen. So there's a sense of, it feels real. It feels organic. It feels plausible that you wake up in the middle of the night and you think you see something, but and you're there and you're getting creeped out by it. And just the way Juan directed that scene, it's one of my favorite scenes in the film, because it feels plausible. It feels real. It feels like, what the fuck is there? What is she looking at? What does she see that we're not seeing? Oh my, what is it? The Conjuring has a great slow burn, really building and milking that and allowing time for us to feel like we're part of that family. We're living in the house as well. So I love things like that. Definitely that's great shit. The Badass Ninja sends in a super chat. Thank you, Chris. He says, "If you are into podcasts, go check out Purple Tail Podcast on YouTube. It's about Barney. It's about Barney TV show." Okay. They bring out the kids that were on the show. It's really good. All right. Hey, if anybody wants to check out the Purple Tail Podcast and Barney TV show and see the kids who are now older, I guess they're older now or whatever, why the hell not? Cool stuff, Chris, and thank you for supporting the channel in that way. You rock, man. Jason Nike is here, my new moderator, joining the show. Hey, I thought it was Monday. No, it's Tuesday. It's because yesterday it was a holiday here in Ontario. That's probably why you thought it was Monday. And Jason, oh, wait a minute. Let me just see. Jason, I still have not received that email you said you sent me. That's so strange. I don't know why I didn't receive it. Are you sure you sent it to the right person? For some strange reason, I haven't received it. Maybe a week will go by and all of a sudden it'll pop in there. But for some reason, I haven't received it. But I assume because you said yes and everything's cool and I know what to do and I get what you want and I get what you're saying, cool stuff. It's great to see you here and hopefully it'll eventually come in. But it's great to see my two new moderators, Jason and Tabitha. We have 5 moderators now here on the channel. We have Tabitha and Darren and Jason and Frank and Tony, which is cool, which is great. They're going to do a great, and like I told them, 9 times out of 10, this chat is fantastic anyway. But every now and then you get some idiot that comes in and needs to be taken care of, right? Yeah, Frank Reiger says in Super Chat, says, what's worse, someone standing over you while you sleep or being chased? I think standing over you while you sleep. Imagine waking up in the morning and seeing that, or just waking up in the middle of the night and seeing that. That, I got to say, that would probably be... Yeah, that's something that I think would be crazy. That's something that's kind of like you wake up and it's like, what the fuck? I mean, that would just be, that's creepy as hell. That's creepy as hell. You know what? I got to say, the very first Paranormal Activity, I need to watch. There are things about that movie. I think found footage movies, it's so unfortunate that found footage movies have become sort of the punchline to a joke. And understandably so. I mean, the vast majority of found footage films are not very good. And of course, the creme de la creme, the whether you like the movie or not, whether it's dated or not, whether you think it's overrated or not, at the end becomes kind of irrelevant. But the granddaddy, the godfather of found footage movies is, of course, the Blair Witch Project from 1999. Not because it is the best found footage movie. I mean, you can debate that until the cows come home. I'm not even saying it's a great film. I'm not saying it's not a great film. I'm just saying I'm not here to argue the merits of the movie itself. But the impact that movie had, it was one of the first movies to be marketed in the way that it was on the internet. There were people that thought that movie was real, literally real. Now, for those of you that are not old enough to remember, I was 20 in 1999, so I remember it very well. People thought that thing was real, literally real. My mother rented the movie thinking it was real until I told her it wasn't, and then she was upset. People thought it was real. Not everybody, of course, but a lot of people did. It was an ingenious marketing campaign. One of the first of its kind online. The found footage movies, some are good, some are garbage. But the found footage movies I really like are the ones that are... The one thing that I will give to the Blair Witch Project, which they did well, and part of this, part of this is because of budget, obviously, is that it felt real because everything, all the production value felt like it was within the universe and space of the film. It's one of the things that I didn't like about the sequel to the Blair Witch, right? The official, leapfrogging over, Book of Shadows and doing a direct sequel to the original from 2016, I think. It was just called Blair Witch, I think. There were some okay moments in there, some creepy moments for sure. But one of the things I didn't like about that movie is that it felt too produced. It felt too like the sound design felt like it was a Hollywood picture. It didn't feel like the noises from the monster, and it didn't feel like it was coming from within the space of where they were. And if I was to shoot, if I was to go out into the woods and capture something on my phone, now granted, I understand there's a certain level of mixing and mastering that has to be done. I get it. But if I was to shoot that on my phone, all the sounds you would hear would sound like it's coming from my phone because it's in the space that I'm in. And that's one of the things that threw me off from that film from 2016. And you see that a lot in quite a few found footage movies, that things appear to be too polished. And I get it. I understand why they're doing that. But some of the best ones that I've enjoyed are ones that feel very much in the universe, in its space, because it feels real. It's like you're just watching you're just watching found footage. You're watching something that as is in the moment. What's that saying they use in so, when you're trying to buy a car, right? Sold as is. You know, what does that mean? It means, well, just as is. You know, whatever. If there's fucking 9,000 things wrong with it, that's what you're getting with it. It's sold as is. It's organic. It's that's just it. You know, it's not fixed, polished. You know, it's just as is. Hey, there's a rust spot. Yep, it's as is. You know, it's grittier, it's grimier, it feels more real. And that is one thing that the Blair Witch, the original, did right. Again, I mean, more than likely because of budget, but it did feel like you were in that space. And I think, although found footage movies have become a punchline, which is so unfortunate, because I still think I still believe, and some of you may disagree, but I still believe that the found footage subgenre of horror unfortunately never was able to reach its true potential or height. I truly believe that. I truly believe that there are found footage movies and ideas that could blow you away in terms of its realism, in terms of its authenticity, in terms of its scare factor. You know what I mean? I truly believe that. And I believe, unfortunately, it just was, it took a left turn instead of a right. And now it's, you know, people kind of roll their eyes now at found footage films, which is so unfortunate, because I think there is untapped potential that just, you know. But anyway, the overall arcing point I was trying to make was the sense of realism within the very first Paranormal Activity I thought was really good. There were certain things I didn't like about it, but it certainly felt real within the space. Now, the further they went along, the more produced it got and fucking dumb it got. I actually even quite like Paranormal Activity 2. I remember seeing that in the theater back in, 2010 or something like that. I actually quite liked the sense of realism in that movie. It definitely felt, it was a little more fantastical than the first one, but it wasn't so sensational that it felt produced. You know what I mean? I think that's somebody outside. Sorry about that. Certainly it was, I was like, what is that noise? Oh, it's probably my neighbor. So it's one of those things where it's certainly, I quite enjoyed it. Once I got to 3, I saw Paranormal Activity 3. I thought, now this is where it's going. And now, of course, you know, you look at the films that aren't even connected to the original series, and you have all this, and watching a Paranormal Activity film now is just watching a regular supernatural horror film. It's so produced, so sensational, so over the top. It doesn't feel real at all, in my opinion anyway. You know what I mean? So it's just unfortunate, because I think there's a lot of untapped potential in that world. I really do. Let me see here. Chris Baber. Oh, I guess, and Frank, the point. Yeah, just this is a whole thing. I went through this whole thing, Frank. Definitely standing over you, sleeping, I think would be creepier. Chris Baber sends a super chat, says, just watch Dr. Sleep. It was better than expected. Soundtrack on point. Cool, Chris. Thank you for supporting the channel, man. Really appreciate it. Cool. Okay, well, I've yet to see Dr. Sleep, but it's definitely on my list. Jason Knight says, I replied to your Patreon. Yeah, I went and checked and there's nothing there. I don't know what it is. It's okay, man. No worries at all. I mean, maybe it'll eventually come in. Maybe there's something that Patreon, maybe like the site's kind of funky right now or something. I'm not sure. Watch, it'll come in 6 months from now. Oh, there it is. Who the hell knows? DMT Infinity says, what is the most memorable and most cherished moment in your life so far? The most memorable, most cherished moment in my life so far. Dude, I have no idea. I don't have any children, so it's not having, the birth of my children. The most cherished moment in my life so far. I think it's just, I don't think there's one single moment. I think it's just a sequence of moments. I think I'm my happiest when I am laughing with my friends about the absurdity of life. Whatever that is, right? Just laughing at the dumb shit that goes on in the world. I'm at my happiest when I can share a laugh and a drink with a buddy of mine. And we need more laughter. You know what I mean? Like, everything's so fucking intense right now. And I think over my life, it's been like that. You know, whether it was in high school or college or now as an adult, I really enjoy laughing at silly things and seeing the absurdity in life. So off the top of my head, I think it's just certain moments like that. I can't think of one specific monumental moment that stands above the rest. That's a big question, a good question, very good question, but a big one. Let me see here. Amar Allergic? Am I saying that right? Hey, Dave, any update on when Wham will be on? Wham, you mean George Michael? George Michael and Wham? Well, I mean, you know, I was thinking about getting them on. I'm just kidding. I am supposed to be, I think Mike is going to reach out to me this evening and let me know sort of what the prognosis is for the rest of the week. So if all goes well, maybe on Thursday. I don't know. We'll see. You guys will know as soon as I know. Let me see here. The Manhammer AR-15 says, Sir Dave, do you think the ending to the first Conjuring played it safe and should have had more bite? Or do you think it would have turned off mainstream audiences? I'm trying to think of the ending to the Conjuring now. I think it was fine. I think it was in line. I mean, I was really enjoying the slow burn aspect of The Conjuring. And then, of course, at the end of the movie, everything sort of became very sensational and demonic. And I'm okay with The Conjuring ending. I mean, there are certain creative decisions that Juan made that I wouldn't have made. I may not have gone as sensational as he did. But I will say that the makeup effects job they did on that woman, I forget her name now, the mom that became possessed, was fantastic. I mean, it looked really fucking weird and creepy. I may not have gone as far as he did, but I think because the rest of the movie was so strong that it almost feels like, okay, we're going to go a little sensational here at the end, kind of more traditional Hollywood, but it feels more earned. It feels like, okay, all right, maybe I would have, pulled back a little bit on that, and maybe a little bit on that, but it feels earned because the rest of the movie is so good and taps into your, the unknown parts of your psyche and like, oh my gosh, and really gets in your head so well that I think it's earned. And I feel that way about Insidious as well. I remember watching Insidious in the theater. I was killing time, actually. I was downtown Toronto, and I had a voiceover session in the mid-morning, and then I had another voiceover session in the early afternoon. And I had about a 2.5 hour window to kill before I had to go to my next one. So I just went to Dundas Square, which is the sort of the Times Square of Toronto. All the big, LED billboards and carnival barkers, all that shit, the people walking around. There's a movie theater there, and I went there and I saw Insidious there. And I was by myself and I saw it and I loved that aspect of it. Like the moment when the actress's name is Rose Byrne, I think. Byrne, is that her? I forget her name in the movie, but when they rush into the room where the child is crying and all of a sudden the demon is behind the fuck, I remember sitting in the theater going, that is awesome. It's subtle. It's nuanced. It's not a jump scare. It could be considered a jump scare because of the musical cue that comes in. But it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And the whole movie was creepy and eerie, and I really enjoyed it. And so when things got a little fantastical at the end, it feels earned. It feels like this is earned. I feel okay with this. It's fantastical horror movies that seem to be fantastical right away. And it's just kind of like, there's no sense of, I don't feel like this could happen. You know what I mean? In Insidious and The Conjuring, even though it's not going to happen, it feels like it could, and I loved it. I thought it was great. Sweet Tea sends in a super chat, says, hello for the channel. Thanks, my friend. Well, thank you very much, Sweet Tea. Really appreciate your support. Frank Riker sends in another super chat, says, if society folds, do you think man will help each other or turn on each other? It's a great question. Well, it depends on the level, right? I mean, if we're talking about, that the society is folding in certain fractions, in certain areas, I think will be okay. If there's mass genocide and epic, worldwide, like fucking like catastrophic, no, I think it is. I think you will see certain people rise up, and I think you will see certain fractions, but in a bigger picture, yeah, I think it's going to be tough. I think that primal animalistic instinct will kick in, and I absolutely do. But it depends on the scale, right? It depends on the scale. If it's just designated to a certain state or a certain province or something, but if it starts spilling over and it could be in some serious trouble. Horror Fan 1988 says, Dave, what's your thoughts on Rosemary's Baby? Love it. Fantastic movie. One of the greatest horror movies ever made. Of course, it was, directed by Roman Polanski, but, your personal life does not dictate how talented you are. There are a lot of talented, unbelievable people in this world who are scum-sucking fuckheads. And obviously, Roman Polanski, denies, obviously, the, diddling a young girl of what is it? I think she was 13 or something like that. Anyway. He denies it. Roman Polanski hasn't been... That's why Roman Polanski lives overseas. He hasn't been back in the United States in decades. Decades. Because if he comes back, he'll be arrested. So he hasn't been in the U.S. in decades. But is he a talented filmmaker? Yeah. Yeah, he is. Of course he is. And it's a great movie. A really, really good movie. That is a really good example of something that is insidious, right? Watching... even Parasite, right? Watching this family insidiously make their way into, this other family is fascinating to watch. And Rosemary's Baby is similar in the sense that you have these seemingly average, normal people who live down the hall from you, but now they want your baby. They want your baby. It's good shit. Love Rosemary's Baby. Great stuff. Jonathan Ball says, scariest scene in Jaws. Guy in the rowboat. See the shark just under the water. I don't know if that's the scariest for me, but that is a scary scene. That I to this day, I've said it before. I will say it again. It doesn't mean that there aren't certain moments in Jaws, like when he's chewing Quint on the orca at the end, where you're kind of like, okay, maybe that's a little dated. But even that's not that bad. I'm telling you right now, I will take a mechanical Bruce over a CGI shark right now, as of shooting this video, or doing the show, I should say, February 18th, 2020. That doesn't mean that in 5 more years, they would not have mastered CGI fish or mammals. But as of right now, I think CGI sharks look fake as fuck. And I just don't buy it. And it's one thing that I still think Jaws is still fucking frightening. Yeah, like the scene you're talking about, when he falls off the rowboat and he's trying to climb back on and you just see the shark's head. That looks like a real fucking shark. Because it was actually a shark. Not actually a shark, but there was actually something in the water there. So those tiny nuances, those grooves and the shadow and how the light falls on, it's all organically created. It looks like a real shark chewing this man away. It's like, oh my God, look at the size of that thing. Could they achieve the same thing with a CG? Yes. Have they gotten better since Deep Blue Sea? Sure. Was the Shallows not bad at moments? Yeah, okay. But it's not like, and again, it's a different type of, I get it that it's a comic book film, but it's not like anybody thought the sharks in Aquaman looked real. You know what I mean? I just don't think they've mastered sharks yet. And there's something about Sharknado, Mark Johnson says, well, that was deliberately, intentionally made to look ridiculous. But even the Shallows, like something that, or, 47 meters down. Yeah, there are moments where you're like, oh, that looks really good. It looks really good. But they're not quite there yet. For me, they're not quite there yet. And there's just something about that shark that looked legit, and yeah. So, but The scariest moment for me, I'm not sure. I would probably say that is a scary moment, though. You know what? I might even say the beginning of the movie. The beginning of Jaws. The girl runs out into the water. It's one of the most iconic moments in the history of cinema. One of the most iconic shots in the history of cinema. The history of cinema is the underwater shot of the girl treading water and the sharks, the POV shot. Fucking, it gives me goosebumps even right now. And you just hear bum 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 bum. I think you hear the theme there, right? I think you do anyway. Fucking amazing. And then she's taken and you don't see a thing. No fin, nothing. Nothing. Fucking frightening. Frightening as all fuck. You know what? I might do a video on this. I might do a video on scariest moments in Jaws. I might do that. I'll think about it. I'm not sure if I'll have time today, but we'll see. Fucking frightening. Frightening as hell. And then her reaction. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God. And she's underwater and then she's, holding on to the buoy or whatever that she's out there. She's like, it's just like, help me, somebody help me. Like, fuck. And you see nothing. Brilliant. Scary as fuck. Scary. Another thing that I find frightening, and again, I might actually do a separate video on this because this is exciting. It inspires me. See, this is what's great about doing these shows. Sometimes little nuggets come in. I'm like, you know what? I should designate an entire show to that or an entire video to that. I also like when Alex goes out into the water, right? The boy that was killed, and he's out there, and the shark. I was about to say, and Jaws. I guess we can call him Jaws. The shark comes up, starts attacking him, and you see it. You see it from the perspective from the shoreline, and you just see blood spurting up into the air. The raft just like, and a fin and a tail fin just kind of like, turning over. It's like, what the fuck was that? Holy shit, the blood that's it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Everybody out of the water now. You know what I mean? Like that. Those two big for me. And yours, the one you said, yeah, that's good too. Yeah, I might do this. I might do a video on this. You've inspired me, man. You've inspired me. Love it when you guys do that. All right. Again, we'll go to about 12:15 or so, and then I got to take off. Gary Rangel says, does the Pamela Voorhees Help Me Mommy creep you out, Dave? It scared the crap out of me and still does because it's oh yeah, it creeps the hell out of me. 100%. Yeah. I mean, if you don't already know, my favorite Friday the 13th is actually the original because of the psychological, and again, it's not a psychological horror film, but there's just that little element to it, that whodunit, who's the killer kind of thing. And when you think about it, there's a rainstorm, there's thunder, there's lightning, it's dark out there, there's only 4 people at the camp, and you hear, help me, killer mommy, help me. Or what? It's like, that's that, help me, mommy. That's Mrs. Voorhees. That's a 55-year-old fucking woman in the middle of a storm, out in the middle of fucking nowhere, screaming that, like, yeah, that's fucking creepy as hell. Creepy as hell. Let me see here. Detroit kills. Oh, he's talking to Striker 87. Let me see. Just want to make sure I didn't miss any super chats. Let me see here. Doesn't look like I did. Okay, cool. Doesn't look like I did. Awesome stuff. Just want to make sure. Tree says, I got to watch Jaws again, but haven't seen it in like 15 years. Oh, it's fantastic. It's one of the greatest ones ever made. Let me see. Jonathan Ball follows up with, in the book Jaws, that's right, by Peter Benchley, they find Chrissy Walken's entire upper body on the shore, not just a hand. Yes. Oh, there's things in that movie that are very different. Doesn't somebody have an affair? Isn't somebody having an affair? Is Matt Hooper having an affair with Chief Brody's wife? Am I fucking out to lunch on that or something? There's something like that. Maybe that's not exact, but there's something. Isn't there some sort of affair going on? What the fuck is it? There's something. There's something going on. I forget what it is. Yes, people are saying yes, yes. Okay, yes, yeah. Yeah, it's like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah, there's a lot of things, obviously, that, like that subplot to the Jaws story wasn't necessary, right, for the film. But yeah, there's a lot of differences in that. I don't have it anymore, and I'm so disappointed. I could probably get it off Amazon or eBay or something, but I had an original copy of Peter Benchley's novel, Jaws, like from the 1970s, from the early 1970s. Not that you can get it now, but like an original copy of Jaws from when it was first published. And we had, I guess my mom or dad bought it, I guess, in the early 70s or something. And of course, when I was born in 79, and then as a kid, as a young boy growing up through the 1980s, I remember seeing it, and, because I never read it as a kid, but I was certainly, because I was all into the movie, but I remember seeing the book going, oh, this is kind of cool. You know what I mean? Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Julian Salgado says, hey, Dave, are you nervous on what people might think of your take on Freddy? I'm super excited and I can't wait. Dylan's New Nightmare is my most anticipated movie, horror movie coming up. Wow. Amazing. No, I mean, you always hope that people enjoy what you do, right? But the reality is, this is just the reality. Not everybody's going to like what I do. That's just the reality. So I'm just going to go out there and do what I do and work with Miko and Cecil and Vince and Nora and, everybody that's involved and Renee and just work together as a team and try to deliver the best possible performance as Freddy and film that we can. And we let the chips fall where they may. Hopefully we please more people than we don't. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be people that are going to go, that's dumb. Oh, that's lame. Or whatever. It's just the reality. It's just, his voice is too deep. His voice is not deep enough. He sounds like crap. He sounds amazing. It's just, you know what I mean? So, am I nervous about that? No, not really, because it wouldn't matter what I do. There's always going to be somebody that's not going to like it. I mean, you may not like it. You may not like it. You know what I mean? My goal is to not do a Robert Englund impression. My goal is to take what Robert has done, remember those subtle nuances that make up the character of Freddy, put my own sort of, stamp on it, of course. But hopefully by the end you go, I believe that's Freddy. I mean, it's not Robert Englund's Freddy, but I totally believe that's Freddy. Now, keep in mind, it's the Freddy from New Nightmare, right? So it's that entity, right? So there's a bit of a meta approach there. But my goal is that when you watch, you go, I totally believe that's Freddy. That, for all intents and purposes, that's Freddy. Yeah. They did a great job. And I'm telling you, I think what's really going to help, and you got to give credit where credit is due. I mean, Nora Hewitt. I mean, she's a Hollywood special effects makeup artist who's going to be doing my makeup, the prosthetics. And I know what I'm going to look like, or I know what they're trying to get me to look like. And it's fucking frightening. And it's amazing. And this is shit. I mean, I will be in the makeup chair every day for like 4 or 5 hours, getting that shit plastered on. And I mean, she is the real deal. And so it's going to be tedious and long, but I'm looking forward to sitting there and watching. And Nora, if you're watching, I don't think she's watching. She probably doesn't even know I have this channel. But I am excited to be sitting there, and I'll be getting to know her and her team a fair bit over that week, because there'll be a lot of time to chit chat. And then there'll be that moment where they're applying, makeup, where it's like, okay, Dave, you have to shut up now. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let me see. Chris Baber sends in a super chat and says, as a voice expert in TV and cinema, is there a movie, commercial, etc., that is considered a grail moment going forward? For me, Chris, or you mean like in general to voice actors? Just put an @ and just let me know, like to me or to voice actors in general. Frank Riker sends a super chat, says, super chat from everyone in the chat, Dave. Wow, amazing. Amazing. You guys are amazing. Fan-fucking-tastic. I love you guys. Let me see here. The Wolf is Awesome says, unpopular opinion. Freddy's voice in the first half of the original Nightmare on Elm Street was much more scarier than the deeper voice used in the second half of the film and in the sequels. I think I can agree, depending on, I'd have to watch the movie again, but I would say that it depends on what he's saying and his performance within all that. But, this is God obviously is higher in the register than, Jesse, you've got the body, I've got the brain. It's obviously that's a deeper sort of take, right? But that's frightening in and of itself too. So it depends on what's being said. There's a lot of nuance there that has to be taken into account. But that's I don't necessarily think, you may find that's not as unpopular of an opinion that you might think it is. Let me see here. Let me see. Chris has not added me. Chris, are you still watching? Send me an, oh, no, there it is. There it is at Dave. In my career going forward. Okay, cool. Well, I would say, for me, the really cool projects that I've got a chance to work on and voice would be anything that is probably a Hollywood movie trailer. I've done, movie trailers for Grindhouse and It and Get Out, The Descent, Big Hero 6, Lego Batman, the Lego Ninjago movie. What's that one? Inside Out from Disney and Pixar, the Box Trolls. Geez, I mean, whenever I get a chance to do something like that and work with, not directly with the studio, but obviously there are, middle men and women in between, but to work on a project like that is always sort of a grail moment, and knowing that you've achieved that sort of level, and then to be honored at the Voice Arts Awards is to be walking around Warner Brothers with the top in the voiceover industry is something really special. And although I haven't won yet, to be nominated 4 times is really amazing. It really is. I would think a lot of people's grail moments within every voice, like every actor, because that's what we are, right? We're voice actors, but we're actors. And so every actor wants consistent work, wants to be able to work consistently. And because we're contract player, I mean, essentially we are all contract players, right? We get hired to do a job. We do that job. Once the contract is done, we're done, right? Depending on how long that contract is. So any actor will tell you, obviously, people want to work. I want to be in a Hollywood movie. I want to be in a Star Wars movie. Sure, there are levels, but every actor wants to have consistent work, right? And I think in the world of voiceover, some of that comes from animation. When you sign a contract and you get to be part of a series, some of that comes from the world of network promos. So you become the voice of a certain channel, right? So let's say you become the voice of NBC. Or something like that. So you do all of their promos for all of their shows or, news or whatever the case is. And that is consistent work. And not only is it consistent work, but it's obviously high caliber work, and it puts your name out there and it puts your voice out there and it gives you some cred and helps to maybe take you to the next level, in something else. And you know what I mean? So it's always about the consistent work. But different actors have different goals, right? There are some voice actors that maybe have no interest in doing animation because they're not really that kind of person. They have no interest in doing, movie trailers because maybe they can't. Maybe they just are perfect. Maybe their main goal is to do audiobooks. You know what I mean? And they just want to do audiobooks. And but then the goal of an audiobook narrator would be to have consistent work doing audiobooks. It's always about consistent work for any actor. But for me, yeah, I would say that my grail moments have been the chances to work on, be a part of, and it's not just all about me, but being a part with a ton of other people of the marketing of a major Hollywood film is something really special. So that for sure is what I would say. Let me see. Oh yeah, it is. It's 12:15 already. I got to get out of here. Let me just read this last super chat here. Bringer of Chaos 00 says, Dave, what are your thoughts on the color of the Shapes coveralls in the 78 movie? Oh man. I think they are not as blue as people think they are, and they are not as green as people think, as some people have alluded them to be. Like for example, they are not as green as the background of your super chat there, and they're not as blue as the background of your little avatar. They are an off-color sort of muted bluish green. Some people say, well, it's spruce green. It's not spruce green is so green. It's unbelievable, and it's not. And Dean Cundy will tell you that. It's more of a muted sort of green. I've been meaning for many months to do a video on this, so I do plan on doing it. I just have to get all my ducks in a row and make sure that I come with all my guns loaded, because this is a hot topic and an area of contention for a lot of fans, and you're definitely going to get but you're going to get a lot of that, so I want to come with all my ducks in a row. Same sort of thing like I did with the, at the end of the movie, she actually says it was the boogeyman. I was able to come fully loaded with that, and I think now, because of that video, most people, and it's in the script as well, and I got to come with evidence. So it's something I plan on doing, but it's not green and it's not blue. It's a muted sort of bluish kind of green, and it can look different depending on the lighting that they use, and what they do. So, but I see some people with like somebody says here, Mark Johnson says fluorescent green. There are some people that have green, like very green coveralls, and I'm like, it wasn't that green. You know what I mean? It's just, anyway, I'll do a video on it eventually. But great question though. Great question. All right, folks, that is going to do it for me. I got to skedaddle early because I have a doctor's appointment I got to go to, but I will be back maybe with that Jaws video that I was talking about as a standalone video either today or tomorrow. We'll see, but definitely I will be back Thursday morning at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on episode, well, it would be episode, by then it would be episode, what would it be? Oh, wait a minute. You know what? Why does that say that? Oh, that's so funny. The title of my video says, Two Dudes and Some Bullshit Live Joker Commentary. Why does it say that? That's weird. That's so weird. It shouldn't say that at all. But it does. I think something happened in the... somebody probably mentioned that. I don't know why it says that. That's so weird. That's so weird. There, I'll change it to that. That should have... that must have happened in the hiccup. In the hiccup. Something must have happened there. That's so weird. Well, it's been changed now. It should, I'll change it also in the, that's so strange. There was a hiccup earlier. I wonder how long it's been doing that. Oh, well, it shouldn't do that for the vast majority of the thing. It's been changed. Hopefully it is showing now. Let me see here. Is it showing? It is showing. It is showing that it has been changed. Very strange. Very strange indeed. I think it was because of the hiccup we had earlier. Something must have happened there. But yeah, I got to skedaddle, folks. That is going to do it for me. You guys are amazing. You guys rock. I will be back Thursday morning on episodes. I was trying to see what the episode was, and it said 2 dudes. I was like, what? It's not 2 dudes today. I changed it, and obviously something happened. Episode 20 on Thursday morning. Maybe the guys from Wham will be on. I don't know. Can't promise anything. I'll talk to Mike tonight. Alrighty, guys. That's going to do it for me. I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you for the super chats. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, in the meantime, and in between time, I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.